Okay, we'll reconvene. We'll call Chris Joblin. Chris is presenting for Tainui Group Holdings. On DCs, Chris, you have 9 minutes. The clock's on the bottom right-hand corner of the screen. That includes questions. Welcome and thanks for coming, Chris.
9 minutes in total.
How many submissions have you got?
2.
Okay, 18 minutes.
Thank you.
Do you want to take them both first, and we'll take questions at the end if you like?
We'll take them both and then take questions at the end. Firstly, thank you all for the opportunity to come and talk to our 2 submissions. For those of you that don't know me, my name's Chris Joblin. I'm the Chief Executive of Tainui Group Holdings. Really what I wanted to do is just cover off both our submissions on the 10-year plan and the development contributions policy today. And really just want to cover that off reasonably quickly and leave plenty of time for questions at the end. As you know, we are one of the largest landowners and most active developers in the city and the region. We've invested the better part of $500 million over the last 10 years, and we'll probably invest another $700 million over the next 10 years as well. So we're all about creating assets and opportunities, employment, housing, not only for our people but the wider community at large. And one of the big things we acknowledge and support the council's growth agenda, and our experience tells us that it's really important that we get this growth agenda right, and too often we can have some good intentions that lead to suboptimal outcomes, and we can see some areas where there's some improvement. So firstly, moving to capital rating, we accept that council's grappling with growth and how to fund it. We support a sustainable approach to the region's finances. The city's got to pay its way. But it's really important that costs are fairly shared, that we have a fair and equitable approach to how that growth is funded. So we have an extensive property portfolio across town, biggest asset being the base, but also a bunch of government rentals and the ground lease under Centreplace. So the immediate implementation of the capital rating value is going to have a huge impact on us, not only in terms of day-to-day financial implications of paying the rates, but obviously there's an impact on the value of those properties as well. So I think that's something that's probably not considered, but really, really important when you think about the erosion of capital that goes with increasing costs. So for us, we see that as a case of good intentions having unintended consequences. And whilst the transition to capital value was debated just 3 years ago, and we think a fair compromise was reached with the community, there's a change now where you're pushing that earlier transition, and we think that's unreasonable given what has been taking place before, and it puts an unreasonable burden not only on us, but on our tenants and other people as well who are trying to survive and run businesses and make an impact on the community. So we've got a separate submission from the base and Kiwi Property as our managers there. So in terms of the long-term plan, we're making a large-scale contribution to the region's growth through Ruakura, investment in hotels and ultimately the Hamilton-Auckland corridor, which will have a huge impact on the city. And as you know, we are really strong supporters of regional growth and growth in Hamilton, and we think now is our moment as a city. And in that sense, we see that Hamilton should and could be the number 2 city in the country, but we can only achieve that if we have a stronger focus on infrastructure. It's a must-have, it's not a nice-to-have, and that needs to be a priority, where we can have strong intermodal, transport connections, housing, and a social environment where people can actually enjoy living in the city, and that's really, really important. Fundamental to that is core services like water and wastewater, and we think in 2018 it's just not good enough, that we see untreated, waste going into the river and so on, and that is an area that requires significant investment, if we were to make Hamilton, a really livable and environmentally friendly city. So, that core infrastructure, that provides the bones for making Hamilton a livable city. It underpins the delivery of housing and is critical for our success as a city and a region. We think that the spending on community and social priorities should follow infrastructure. That is the return on investment that will ultimately come from spending on infrastructure. And the other thing that we see and actively encourage you to look at is alternate sources of funding. Where we've reached as an organisation in our projects is a point where it's cheaper for us now to go out and externally source and provide infrastructure and run it ourselves than go through the traditional procurement model of paying for it, gifting it to the council and then paying DCs and ultimately rates. So we've reached a tipping point, and that means that we think that there needs to be a relook at how infrastructure is funded and delivered. So a couple of examples too where I think that we have to be really important around infrastructure. So really support the investment for the spine road at Ruakura. In our eyes, it recognises the economic contribution that Ruakura is going to make for the city and the region. But we've reached a point where the good intentions around that has unintended consequences for both us and council. As you'll know, the original PDA sees TGH funding that spine road, and at a point in time where that was agreed to between ourselves, there was a threshold in there around the vehicle movements through Wairiri Drive and Ruakura Road at 1,200 vehicles a day. So we signed those agreements some time ago. We've already reached that threshold, or all but reached that threshold. So where we signed up to fund our growth, we're in the position now where we have to fund everyone's growth. And we think that that's just unfair. And whilst really good intentions, we want to pay our fair share. But we think the good intention and the good will in going through the PDA process now has unintended consequences that we need to deal with. And we know that Hamilton's going to continue to grow, and it's really important how we manage that growth. And what that triggers now is a cost of about $60 million to build that road, which we think is unfair for that all to land on us, given that inherent growth around that region has driven that cost at this time. So what we'd like to see is the council bring forward the timing of building the spine road, and I think that will alleviate a huge bunch of problems within the city and access. Moving forward to Rotokauri, council has clearly signalled that as an area for growth. We as a company have invested more than $50 million in bringing Rotokauri to life. And we've done that based on the signals from council, and we've generated shortly 200 houses, some still under construction, and we'll deliver another 700 sections. But again, there's unintended consequences now where we have invested based on the signals from council, and we have to stop now or shortly because the swale and some of the other infrastructure is not in place. So we've got a city that's bulging at the seams, that's screaming for growth. We want to deliver that growth and that housing and those opportunities for people, but we can't because what was signalled to us has not been delivered. So, in the long-term plan, there's a bunch of money in year 7 to 10 in the current plan. The rest is deferred out into the future. But what this will do is basically stagnate and stop development. So we've invested based on the signals and the partnership that we've received from yourselves, and now we're in a position where we have to stop because that infrastructure hasn't been put in place. Which also links into the HIF funding. So, we're concerned around that and it being directed towards a single area at Peacocks. Creates a windfall for developers and property owners in that area. So, whilst the burden of the loan is going to fall across the whole city. So we think that that's inherently unfair. And we endorse and encourage the commitment to housing, but those benefits need to be spread across the city and need to look at other areas where growth can be facilitated on a greater return on investment basis. So there's areas that are lower cost to develop, and they should be sought out first. So again, we think when you look at Rotakari, you've got ourselves and you've got the SHAs to the north of ourselves. That's an area that will produce 3,000 houses in the near term if the council wants to allow that to happen. And really that ball is in your court, and it spreads the risk of development. Coming to the development charges, again, good intentions there, but it's going to have unintended consequences. So taking Rotakari as an example, our research shows that Rotakari will have the highest DCs of any development area in the country. And we think, again, that is inherently unfair. And that's come from the Inside Economic Report that bears all that out. And it's 39% higher than the second highest charge, which is in Auckland. So that makes absolutely no sense to us. We are happy, to pay our fair share and promote growth, but there needs to be an equal burden. And that report says that the proposed charges are so much higher than anywhere else that they are likely to have a dampening effect. That's an independent party that has talked to that. So, you're going to add $30,000 onto a cost of a section, and we as a country are struggling with affordable housing. So again, is counter to the goals of the country. So just really wrap up, we really strongly support the growth intent for the council and encourage you to continue to do that. We want to support that and play our way in that and pay our fair share, but we want the impact of growth that has already occurred to be equally funded across the city. And where we create that growth, we're happy to pay our way. But we think that there's a fairness and equity issue that needs to be addressed. So I'll just stop there, conscious of time, and open it up for questions. Thank you.
Councillor Paula.
Okay, thank you. Shot to the top of the list. I was just interested in that you mentioned around the report around the Rotakari having one of the highest levels of DCs. What was the report, and why did it enter? What reasons did it identify as that being the case?
So I've done a study of DCs across the country.
Who is that? Sorry?
Inside Economics. So we can get you a copy of that report if you haven't got it already. So Rotakari in that report has the highest DCs of any development area in the country, and it's 39% higher than the next highest, which is in Auckland. So that makes no sense.
And does it extrapolate out to give you the reasons for that, or?
Yeah, there's a bunch of different reasons around delivery of infrastructure and how growth is funded. So you'll know that Rotakari is significantly more expensive than Rotatuna and some of the other areas in terms of DCs and how costs have been applied.
Okay, probably have other questions, but there's a list, so thanks.
Councillor Siggy.
No, thank you so much, Chris, for that. First of all, thank you for actually mentioning environmentally friendly city. That's the first I've heard in the last 3 days, so that's exciting. Somebody's saying something about environment. The other thing, you talked, and I heard some other submitters say the same thing, that we will be the number 2 city, and you're talking about size-wise? Number 2 city, population-based. What is exciting about that? I mean, what is it that is good about that, to be that,
Well, it just unlocks huge opportunity for the people that live in the city and the region. What that means in terms of employment, jobs, training, education. It enables the city to fund some of the social infrastructure, like Claudelands, like the new theatre. Bigger population base makes those things a whole lot more affordable. So we think investing in the infrastructure is going to make those things that we really want to have in a cultural element for our city makes them a whole lot more attainable. But got to invest in the infrastructure first.
Thank you. That's great. Thank you.
Councillor Ryan?
Thanks, Chris, and thanks for the great work you guys are doing. You touched on alternative funding measures for infrastructure, and you guys are doing some stuff in that space. Can you talk a bit more about that?
Yep. So you look at the experience in Australia, closer to home, and the US, where developers now are effectively putting in closed cell water, wastewater treatment, recycling of grey water. So again, environmentally friendly, you take recycled water, you put it back through the taps, garden hose, irrigation, etc. We've basically reached the point now with the people that we work with, because we want to actively invest in this space. It's actually more economic for us, taking Ruakura, for example, to put that infrastructure in, own it, close sell it, and run it, than it is for us to put all the pipes and all the infrastructure in the ground and pay DCs. So it's reached a tipping point now where it's becoming uneconomic and the alternatives are lower cost. And that's the experience offshore as well. So we think that the best model, where the council is going to have to go, is to either allow developers to look at the lowest cost funding model for infrastructure, or you bring in third-party investment and create scale. And that scale could be as far north as Huntly and all the way to Tiamutu, Cambridge in the south, and you create one big, large wastewater treatment plant, for example, that's not going to pump 1 million litres of raw sewage into the river when you have a mistake. Actually make something that's world class, and that allows you to bring industry. There's a whole bunch of different products that you can make from the recycling of what goes through a plant like that. So technology is here and now. It just requires a willingness to invest in it and a bit more freedom and lateral thinking from the council, developers and investors to enable that to happen.
Thanks.
Councillor Dave?
Thanks. Chris, you were talking about the Housing Infrastructure Fund and it being unfair that Peacock's developers were getting a sort of an inbuilt advantage over Rotokauri or others. Are you aware that we applied for both Peacocks and Rotokauri? Yeah. So that was a government decision that landed it like that, and that we wouldn't legally be able to spread the benefits outside there. I'm not sure how you think we could, but spread the low interest or no interest benefits outside Peacocks.
Yeah, it's just how you recover costs and how that's allocated through, the citywide DCs, etc. So you're effectively, there is a significant advantage now to develop in Peacocks. So that creates an uneven playing field. Yeah. And, what that means, we all want, fast rail between Hamilton and Auckland, and we're going to develop to the southwest of the city, and the train's going to be in the northwest, and we're going to stagnate.
Well, you haven't heard about our plan to extend it to the southwest yet.
I haven't heard that, but again, the growth is going to naturally come to the north, because, like it or not, we're going to gravitate towards Auckland.
One more question, Councillor Gary.
Thank you. And it's triggered off Ryan's comments, which I picked up from when you talked about the tipping point. It sounds like that's quite a game changer. What is happening in a small, if what I heard I understood, what is happening is now the developers are actually building, owning and operating the core infrastructure, not the theatres and things like that, but the core infrastructure in certain growth cells.
Correct. And
the council's responsibility then is just as a checker, checks that you're meeting certain standards and
regulatory.
Is that right? Yeah, yeah.
So I'll give you
which changes the whole world in terms of what we're doing.
I'll give you an example, a really good one that we know of in Sydney and Pitt Street. There's a clustering of office, high-rise buildings and apartments, and in there they have effectively a biodigester, takes green waste, etc. They pipe in and recycle the water. So closed cell recycling of water, and any overflow from waste, if they can't process or inflow, then goes back out. So instead of having a metre pipe, it's sort of 200 mil. So there is still some overflow. They pipe all that water back through the apartments, and because that water is warm, they use it to heat it. Mm-hmm. And in summer, they use it through condensers and use it to cool the apartments. So, you've got this technology that effectively those buildings are off, almost off the council grid. And the councils in Australia are actively promoting that because they can't pay for the infrastructure.
So what has driven that? Is it because, and I don't want to be rude to our own organisation,
Yeah.
but are we just not flexible enough, and that flexibility flows through to us being late in delivering things and expensive in delivering things, or is it just that you guys are hot shots and got the best technology?
No, it's not that we're hot shots. I think there's better technology out there. And again, the cheapest thing for the city, in terms of water and wastewater, is to go to scale and bring in.
Sorry, is to what?
Go to scale and,
scale.
and bring in some of our neighbouring entities. And again, we've looked at this. You can go to what I would call a recycled water standard, so you can drink it, although the public's not ready for that. But if we can't go and stand under the outlet pipe and put a cup under and drink it, it shouldn't be going into the river, and that's not a standard that's acceptable in this day and age. So the technology exists. It's a hell of a lot cheaper than it used to be, and you take some of the applications within the mining villages in Australia where they sit, the wastewater treatment sits inside a 40-foot container, and these are camps with many thousands of men and women, but they are big camps, and it sits inside a 40-foot container, and then you're taking the byproduct, you're recycling the water, you're capturing the heat, you're capturing gas, and all those byproducts are used.
That's
so
fascinating.
Technology exists now, and what I would encourage, and I think what you are doing around the CCR, water and wastewater CCR, absolutely the right thing, and that will take.
CCO, did you say? The wastewater CCO?
The partnership with.
That's not going so far, I don't think.
Gary, we're out of time.
Yeah, but
So I just couldn't hear what he said.
But that was the right thing to do. That will take, from what we're seeing, huge cost out of the equation, and what that will mean is it's a whole lot cheaper to run the city, but it also means it's going to be a whole lot more affordable to develop further housing. And that's what it's all about. If we can't develop housing in our city, we're going to wither and die, and that's going to go somewhere else. And with that comes all the social infrastructure. If we don't grow in a housing sense, that social infrastructure, theatres, swimming pools, playgrounds, they become unattainable and unaffordable. So the two go hand in hand.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chris. Is there anything else you want to add in finishing up?
No, thank you for the opportunity, and as I say, this is our time. It's there for us to grab it. We see it every day in the things that we do, and we strongly encourage the council to invest in infrastructure to allow the city to grow and do it in a fair and equitable way.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, we now have Chris Friends presenting for the Ministry of Education on DCs. Keith, sorry. Is it only on DCs, Keith?
No.
The long-term plan.
It's more about the long-term plan than the
Long-term
DCs,
plan.
but the two are connected.
It should be under Andrew Hill on behalf of Ministry of...
There's one in the DC, sorry. There's one in the LTP and one in the DC. There are two.
Sure.
Track them down.
Yep. So, Keith, you've got 18 minutes. The time is in the bottom right-hand corner of the electronic screen, and that includes questions.
I will take much less than that, sir.
And
Thank you.
Just thank you for coming. We do welcome you here.
Thank you. I hope the councillors have, and yourself have found the submissions. I will speak to them. I'm not going to read them out or anything like that.
No.
And more in particular, I think I just want to support council in its good work in preparing the LTP and the DC contribution policy. Yes, as you said, sir, my name's Keith Frentz. I'm a technical director at Becker, and I speak today on behalf of the Ministry of Education. There are 3 key points in our written submissions, and I refer to them together, so I probably won't need the 18 minutes, certainly. Those 3 key points are the growth areas, special housing areas, and just working together, as we are and should continue to. So the first point, selecting growth areas in Hamilton, which is your challenge number 2 in the LTP. The infrastructure strategy, there is an increasing focus on redevelopment of existing areas, special housing areas and greenfield development across Hamilton, with an increasing focus on Rotokauri, Te Kowhai and Peacocks. Ministry of Education is a key provider of social infrastructure in the form of schools across the city and investigating the needs for schools in these areas. And they, in much the same way as council has to provide water services, wastewater services, ministry has to respond to growth. It doesn't create the growth in itself, and people are very aware when there are no schools available for them, or the schools are too small. So we have to respond to those growth requirements. So the Ministry supports Council's plan to focus on developing and funding infrastructure in Peacocks, which is your option 1, because that option provides certainty to the Ministry and helps the Ministry to coordinate its efforts and to provide schools in those areas. As you'd be aware, there is a limited pot of money from government for many, many things, and it's very difficult to coordinate growth of schools or new schools in an area where that growth, the population growth, is spread all over the place. So we're looking at one option, and we think the Peacocks is the better choice. It sort of brings me to the second point about special housing areas. The selection and development of school sites, as I said, requires continuing certainty and coordination with council to understand those areas where growth is likely to occur. And the school site development process in itself can take 5 to 10 years from when you first identify a need through network acquisition reports, sorry, that's a fancy name for demographic population reports, through the site selection studies, property purchase, then the notices of requirement, designations, establishment of new boards of trustees, and the final construction. I've been involved in a number of new school developments in Tauranga, and they have taken at least 5 years, and some have taken longer than that. The development of special housing areas can bring development in an area forward by 10 to 15 years, and this presents a challenge for the Ministry to respond to this rapid growth, and then also considering the planned growth at Peacocks. So I suppose in terms of the special housing areas, the Ministry would like to be involved in any decision making around those so that they can understand where their growth pressures and budgets are likely to be needed. The third point, working together, Ministry seeks close collaboration with the Council, and I recognise the collaboration that has taken place in the past. We want that to continue to identify growth areas, greenfields, special housing areas and intensification, especially at the early stages, the demographic assessment stages. So, as I said, Ministry and Council have worked close together in the past and have helped to identify school sites in Hamilton, like Te Ao Marama School, which was formerly the Sylvester School. And by working together, this can ensure that school sites are available when needed to meet demand, and the Ministry has a capacity to respond to that growth. Ministry seeks to continue its positive relationship with the Council and to be concluded in future structure planning, plan changes and special housing area applications. And that's all I have to say. I welcome any questions.
Thank you. Councillor Dave.
Oh, thanks. I was pleased to see a comment in your written report that you are keen or the ministry is keen, I hope you are too.
I'm very keen.
Oh, yeah, good. On the school cycling link side of things, because that's been a great success at one of our high schools, Rotatuna, inadvertently, because there weren't enough roads to get people easily there, but that's another story. Is the ministry interested in partnering with council on the wider provision of cycling facilities that, you know, support a school cycling link, for instance, you know, outside just the footprint of the school itself, potentially?
I can't possibly comment on anything that would cost the ministry money, but I do know that each school, and each new school in particular, are usually required to provide school travel plans, and that would be the place, I think, in conversations with the boards of trustees, and then they go cap in hand to the ministry for their money, to identify, I'm very keen on off-road cycling provision as well, to try and reduce risk. But it becomes part of that process, and it becomes part of the conversation that you have with schools and the ministry to get the traffic off the roads, get kids on bikes and things like that. So
Were you saying with the Board of Trustees as opposed to the ministry, it's just that we find quite a different response from different boards of trustees, because they don't have, they're not professionals, they're not paid other than a meeting fee. Is there a way to get some sort of national standard for that aspect of travel plans, maybe?
I understand there's a fairly consistent template for travel plans. I think, and this is about working together, and I think in involving the ministry in the conversations with the boards, or involving one way or the other, boards with the ministry, I think the staff, council staff, would be able to get a far greater degree of buy-in from individual schools who have their own problems within the school. So, yeah, I think it's a conversation that we need to continue.
Sure, thanks. Just on special housing areas, which you mentioned, we've just approved a problem for you or your people that are paying you in Rotokauri North. We're going to allow enough people in there to absolutely require some sort of primary schooling, I would have thought, which is probably 15 or maybe 50 years ahead of when the ministry thought it was going to have to do that. How's that going to be achieved by the ministry to meet the something the government very much wants us to do?
Yes, I've been looking at that wee problem. My understanding of the special housing area is that it takes in about 130 hectares.
I can't remember the number of hectares, but it's so up to 4,000 population.
Yeah, so 4,000 is a difficult size. It's probably much easier if it was actually bigger.
All right, but we can do that.
You can do that?
Can we do that? Yeah.
4,000, just to give you some numbers, and 4,000 will give you a school population of about 200 to 300. It's primary school population.
Yep.
And generally, a new school would be in the order or planned for a full population school roll of 650. So you've
from day one or building two?
Over building two. So over the just for that special housing area, and then if you then decide to build in Peacocks, which is a long way away, you're left with effectively half a school. So that's the problem that the ministry has in determining where to put its budget. There's, I think it's Te Kowhai, there's a school just to the north of where the special housing area is.
No, this one's right in the smack in the middle, literally, of the footprint.
Okay, can we just pull this back to DC's or 10-year plan?
Yeah, it's just, well, no, the submitter did just, they specifically mentioned needing to be in sync with our SHAs.
Yeah, and I think it's good you've brought it to their attention, and I think it's good that you're already thinking along those lines. Yeah. But I don't think we want to get into the planning of the school right now.
I think no time like now, Your Worship. Anyway, sorry, the other point I had was, I won't go on that one anymore, it was the developer contributions. We heard from another submitter who's proposing an integrated school in one of our growth areas this morning, saying, Catholic's integrated school, stating that they are required to pay developer levies, but full state schools are not.
That's correct.
Okay. Is that an anomaly that the ministry's sort of very aware of? You know, is it... Because that sort of brings a bit of pressure on something like us to lobby the government to change the rules. So the
I don't think it's, from the ministry's point of view, it's an anomaly. The basic reasoning that the ministry isn't liable for development contributions is that the Local Government Act says they're not. So there is an exemption in the Local Government Act for Crown works, effectively, to pay development contributions. And then that leads you to the funding of integrated schools, which I'm not an expert on. But my understanding is that they are special character schools developed by special character groups, if you like, Catholics in that instance. And their operations, I think it is, are funded by the ministry. So the development of the school is not the ministry's responsibility.
Okay.
And so it's not an anomaly in terms of the law, the statutes that govern these things. You may seek to consider the effects of those schools on the infrastructure that's being provided to them. I've done quite a bit of work around development contributions for the ministry, and I know that, for instance, a primary school of 650 students uses roughly the same amount of water as 2 houses. So, you know, it depends on how you allocate the unit of demand for development contributions to an integrated school. It may be that they should, and perhaps and probably do, pay development contributions, but should they be paying the amount that you're requiring them to pay?
So they should consult with you, I think, by the sounds of it. Anyway, it was very helpful. Thanks.
Okay.
Councillor Paula.
I think this follows on from some of the line of questioning from Dave. I'm interested in how the ministry informs and plans its own schooling solutions. I know that you want certainty, but supposing the city provided certainty, whether it was north or south, and that was the way it was, you would be able to factor that certainty into your planning? Because you're favouring Peacock, right? But I mean, so long as you know where the population is going to be,
Yes.
then you can plan ahead.
Exactly. You know, it needn't be peacocks. My reading of the LTP document was that it was potentially more likely that peacocks would be favoured. What we need is certainty around where that population is going to be at the time that you're doing the structure planning.
Yeah, so long as you get a decent heads up about where the growth is going to go
Yes,
and when,
that's correct.
whether it was north or south of Hamilton, you could do that.
Yeah.
Just wondering, in terms of other analysis that you might do to inform where a school goes, presumably you're looking at other driving factors like where the population of young students are right now, because they're
Yes.
going to come up to secondary, and those kind of things, where population places itself. There's some parts of the community are a lot older than other parts of the community, etc. So, what, families are attracted to certain parts and so forth. So, do you look at that kind of?
The
is it too clunky?
demographic calculation, you know, in terms of saying that 4,000 people meant a school of 200 to 300, we deal with age groups between naught actually, but you know, say 5 and 17, which is the period that kids have to go to school, and for within the census area units that are being considered, each census area unit has a different proportion of growth in that area, in that age range. And it is typically about 7.5% for primary schools, but it could range from maybe 6.5 to 8.5 or even 10% in some areas. So yes, we do look at it in that amount of detail.
So the exchange of information could be a two-way one, where you foresee that growth coming from in any case, and then the information that we share about where new growth may come.
We already have that sharing of information available
So
through between Hamilton City and Ministry.
No doubt you do, but that's the important part. It's two parts of the same
Yes.
pressure. Yeah.
Yes, it is.
Thank you.
Councillor Siggy.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Andrew. Just a question, and I just a follow-up or clarification. I might not have got that right, but you said each student uses more water than 2 households. Is that?
No.
This is getting way away from the subject. That we're just so far off. This is about DCs and 10-year plan.
Yeah,
And
but I mean that
we've really
might
strayed
have
a long way, and I've sort of let it go. But this is not a water discussion, or
I know, but it might have a part on the infrastructure that we need to.
no.
put in.
I'm sorry, I'm not accepting
Okay.
this question, and it's not.
Sorry,
We're just getting too far away from
Okay.
the subject we're here to discuss.
Oh, good.
All right. Any more questions? Okay. Well, thank you, members, and thank you very much for your presentation.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, we now invite Perry Group, Paul Radich and Vanessa Mills. Are you presenting on both DCs and 10-year plan? Okay, so you have 18 minutes. The time's on the bottom right-hand corner of the electronic board. That includes questions. Just make yourself comfortable. Don't start till you're ready. The clock won't start till you're ready. And welcome, thank you for coming.
Thanks for having us. Thanks for the opportunity to speak to the proposed DC policy and the 10-year plan. As you know, Perry's has been part of Hamilton for a long time, since Brian in 1954 bought his excavator and started catering for a growing city, providing jobs and infrastructure not only to the city but to the region as well. And these values that he's instilled of people and excellence and pride and community have guided the company since those days, providing a strong culture of community and corporate responsibility, which is still in the day-to-day business practices, now led by Simon Perry. This has allowed Perry's to diversify into one of the most well-established and highly respected privately owned companies in the Waikato. And sitting alongside these values is the core belief that we can do better, and that we should always strive to do better and maximise our collective opportunities and provide outcomes which benefit all. This commercial success has enabled Perry's to then support the community, which has supported it for 3 decades through the Brian Perry Charitable Trust, which continues to develop strong partnerships with local organisations and support a wide range of community-driven projects, making good on its mission to provide a meaningful difference towards a vibrant Waikato region. And this can be seen around the region and around the city through projects such as the Cambridge Podium Lodge, a world-class Vantage-Drome, Horatu bike track, and of course the iconic Te Awa River Ride and Perry Bridge. Other less conspicuous givings are in the form of community initiatives such as the Perry Outdoor Education Trust, which provides lower decile schools with outdoor education, and the Adastra Foundation, which supports talented young musicians and athletes through scholarships and mentoring. Perry's acknowledge that the Hamilton city is experiencing growth and the need to accommodate this growth. We believe that growth and the fact that people want to live here is actually a very positive opportunity, but we also recognise that it comes with some great challenges. This primary challenge currently is housing, with Hamilton being no different to other parts of the country. This housing and the need for affordable housing, a fundamental human need, which illustrates the challenges of growth. We appreciate the challenges around infrastructure and the formidable task in establishing a sustainable financial strategy to fund this growth, and recognise that DCs are a valuable tool here. However, we don't believe that the proposed DC policy will increase affordability, and this, coupled with the increase in rates, seems to make that goal slip further and further away. Now, while we appreciate this might be a response to the stark reality of the situation, they're hard to accept without some sort of reciprocal, meaningful change to the way that business is done, and this calls for new innovation and new efficiencies and new thinking. We also have concerns about projects outside the 10-year plan being funded by DCs. This untested method adds further uncertainty to developers and legal risk to council. By weakening the connection between what a developer pays for a DC and what infrastructure is actually getting built. But we are confident that you will assess these effects before proceeding. We highlight the need for certainty and transparency, especially in an industry where regulation or regulatory uncertainty is a key risk. We recognise the work which has been done by Council on housing, including the Special Housing Accord and HIF Fund. How we can continue to meet the challenges of growth is a discussion that we need to continue, as current tools, processes and regulatory frameworks are unable to respond to a rapidly changing world. Just to mention some good initiatives, the Regional Infrastructure Technical Specifications, or RITS, which aims to provide consistent engineering specifications across councils, creating more certainty for developers across the region, and also the district plan monitoring work, which Hamilton City is undertaking, which increases access to city growth information, enabling people to make more informed decisions. However, we do believe that this is not enough, and then when faced with the challenges that the city faces, more needs to be done to further explore options for procedural and compliance efficiencies so that the goals of affordability can be achieved. We need to find more ways to spend less on engineers and planners and economists and other consultants which impact on projects' viability and housing affordability. And being involved in two processes at the moment, I'm seeing that firsthand. So I certainly have a vested interest in making sure that we're as efficient as possible. As you know, Perry's have identified an opportunity to cater to the needs of the city through the creation of a master planned community at Te Awa Lakes, where uneconomic industrial land can be developed to enable a whole range of benefits, including 1,000 homes, commercial and tourism activities. Perry's is providing an area which combines affordable housing with great amenity to cater to the current need of growth sales at Rotokauri and Peacocks in the process of being established. We believe that developers should pay for their fair share in infrastructure and amenity, and Perry's have already delivered the water and wastewater services needed to service its Te Awa Lake site. This capacity could be optimised if more innovative wastewater solutions were allowed, as they are in other areas. However, local development regulations do not currently allow for this. Similarly, the prospect of an adventure park is likely not one envisaged by planners or policymakers. This is common with unique and transformational projects. We believe it illustrates the difference often found between community aspirations and the policy's ability to cater to these. Now, this tension is often found at all levels of development, from policy and planning down to development and delivery. It again highlights the need to think outside of established rules, which stifle innovation. It's important that we make policy work for us and not be limited by old ways of thinking, risking unique ideas and innovative solutions being lost. One such new idea that's emerging is tourism, and Perry's note that the 10-year plan is silent on tourism, the country's major export earner and a sector where Waikato lags behind. While tourism may not fit comfortably into Hamilton City's residential and industrial development strategy, we believe that there is a risk that the sector will remain severely underutilised and opportunities lost if it's not given a focus. Perry's discussions with community groups, iwi, and tourism operators has resulted in an extremely strong desire to utilise current opportunities to showcase the region and its natural assets and strengthen the already existing attractions such as the Hamilton Gardens and the river. The opportunity to provide further economic development and jobs in a sector to support an industry which enhances our environment and regional story is one which we believe can connect many communities and enable them to prosper. The creation of an adventure park to cater to locals and visitors in a city where events are a growing economic driver is one which we wish to promote as a cornerstone of the Waikato tourism strategy, welcoming visitors at the gateway to the city and providing a good level of activities and amenities to them as they visit the region. To wrap up, we recognise the city is experiencing large-scale growth and the challenges being faced connected with this growth. The issues are challenging and will take a concentrated effort and collaborative approach, not just by council but also its stakeholders. And I'd just like to support the previous speaker in his advocacy for collaboration. We believe these challenges, especially around housing, will be met through collaboration, innovation, partnership with iwi, local, central government, private sector and stakeholders. We don't believe the proposed DC policy and 10-year plan adequately addresses these problems. Perry's has successfully connected a Perry culture, commercial and community aspirations for over 60 years, and we want to keep doing that. We've been working with iwi in both commercial and community projects to deliver a holistic wellbeing for Hamilton and the wider Waikato people. Also, other groups such as Habitat for Humanity, who will also be going through an SHA at their Tawa Street. So working with Nick and his team to develop progressive developments which look at a range of tenures to cater for the spectrum of needs that is currently in Hamilton. We appreciate that the problems are difficult. They involve complex financial and also social aspects, but it's good to have someone who is willing to confront those problems and also put something on the line to be able to deliver on them. We encourage Hamilton City to take these opportunities and work with partners and stakeholders in Hamilton to deliver these successful community infrastructure projects and engage in new thinking on how these challenges can be met. Thank you.
Councillor Dave.
Thanks. Thanks for your submission. You mentioned in relation to Te Awa Lakes, there could be more innovative wastewater solutions if they were allowed, and that they were in some other areas, presumably in New Zealand, I think you meant.
Yeah.
Can you give us a couple of examples without too many details?
Yeah, sure. So there's a solution which involves grinder pumps, which is different to your traditional gravity-fed infrastructure. And this is something which we're quite interested in utilising out at Te Awa Lakes. It's already been utilised in Rotorua, I believe, and possibly Christchurch. It allows for shallower systems and increased control so that when you do have big rain events, that you don't get as many overflows. It's particularly good for Te Awa Lakes, where there is already one out there, and you can basically get increased capacity, from my understanding, from current infrastructure.
So that's sort of like a self-contained for that precinct system?
Yeah.
So it wouldn't have to connect to the city's
no, it would
system.
still connect to the cities, but it would just allow an easier ride, I suppose, to the city source. Yeah. It's like a giant mixer.
Thank you
Yeah.
for that analogy.
Yeah.
He's the chief executive, in case you didn't know. So are you saying that that hasn't been able to be proposed as part of the SHA concept there?
No, it hasn't been able to be proposed as a overall infrastructure solution, whether it be plan change or SHA. We've modelled on the traditional gravity-fed solution, and that's fine. But if we want to optimise the infrastructure that we have, this is something which could do that, and I believe it's just not yet to be ticked off from a policy point of view. And I suppose that's just something which illustrates, the disconnect between some of the things that we want and some of the policies that we have, and we're certainly finding that, with what we're trying to deliver with Te Awa Lakes. We have plans, regional or district, which have been developed over years and years and years, and might not necessarily connect so well with today's reality.
Okay. We'll keep proposing that, because it'd be nice for it to be brought before council for council to be given a choice, I suppose, but that's just a comment.
Councillor Siggy.
Concur.
Thank you so much. Thank you for your submission. And I just want to follow on from that. So do you feel like that our district plan is not up to date with what's actually the new changes that are happening? We're not reacting fast enough or listening to what's out there. We're still stuck in the same old, same old.
I'm not
little
sure if I
bit.
can comment on the whole
No,
district plan.
Sorry, is it all
You
right?
don't have to answer that if you don't
yeah,
want to. It's
no, but
putting you in an awkward position.
No, that is fine. I think the district plan certainly didn't envisage adventure parks. And so I suppose that's one of the problems, and probably nor should it. You know, planners can't come up with every and any opportunity. It's just about having that flexibility so that we can accommodate these ideas. And, you know, through our consultation and with other groups, they're struggling as well, because, you know, where do you put these sorts of activities, paintball or go-karts or whatever? It seems that they're most appropriate in industrial areas, but we also want to keep industrial areas for industrial use and all those sorts of things. So it's just about maintaining that flexibility.
But other cities have done this, have done stuff like that, so we could look at what they've done, isn't it, really?
Yep.
Thank you.
Right, is there anything you want to add as a final statement?
No, I think that's pretty much it. Is that you right, Ben?
Yeah, I think that's it. I haven't said much, but
She's just here for moral support.
yeah.
All right, well, thank you very much for coming. Thank you for your
Thank you.
presentation.
Thank you.
Okay, so now moving through to committee room 1 for our next presentation after we've just... no, I think they've got the room set up in there. So, but before we do go, we're just going to run through... We'll just run through... excuse me, Jen. The meeting's still running, so could you move to the foyer? Thank you. So we'll just, once again, Richard's the staff are going to take down the last of our thoughts.
So I'll start with you, Councillor Angela. Any questions for clarity from what you've heard today that you need us to follow up on?
Why'd you start with me? I didn't even have my hand up.
Okay, we'll start with Councillor Paula, and we'll catch up to you.
Oh, great. I'm in the same position, actually.
Does anyone have any questions for clarity? Okay, we'll go back. Yeah, we'll go back to Councillor Angela.
People
There
he's
you
been to.
go. Staff, can you make sure you're listening, please?
Look, this wasn't from today, but a developer said yesterday, and sorry, I didn't write it down, that the subsidy from NZTA is split between DCs and council.
Yep.
And I remember the comment, but I don't understand it. So,
Yep. So we're planning a
information.
significant briefing on development contributions, and we'll make sure that's included in the briefing.
Okay, that's fine.
Yep. So did someone grab that? Julie, you got that point? Yep. Cool. Thank you. Anything else, Councillor O'Leary?
No, not right now.
Councillor Siggy.
Yeah, I'm just coming back to the dog thing. Can we, I mean, is it possible to tag onto the dog registration a cost to fund that dog?
Yeah, so your question is what level of flexibility do we have in our dog charges to pay for other activities? So
that's it.
We'll take note of that,
Flexibility.
which is over here. Thank you, Councillor Henry. Councillor Tooman.
I think Dave actually got it out of the state school versus the integrated school.
Yeah, we already picked that one up.
You got that one?
Yep, got that one.
Yeah, it doesn't seem to be fair to me. Yep.
But
No, probably because I went to a Catholic.
Yeah, so we're finding out what we do and what the differences are and why.
Not that one, but a couple of others. just that guy, Richard Rusk, the
Yes.
developer from Rotorua, and it seemed clear he was going to get the old policy DCs for the current applications that's in there, but his contention was the entire thing had been pushed out into the new policy period, and if we'd got our SHIT together earlier, and one of them too, if we got all of those S things earlier, he wouldn't have been, he would have been in the situation of having been well on the way and not being caught by
Yep.
the new policy.
So an update on the process behind that stuff is probably the best thing to do. So we'll bring that into the DC briefing as well. So looking at Julie, thank you. Yep, got that.
Yep. And the impact of phasing in the removal of CBD DC remissions, not just in the 1 year, but over a longer period. In the submitter mentioned 4 years. Neil, whatever his name was, Mike Neal, sorry. And HCBA's bike hub idea, just to be put on the list.
Yep.
And Perry's thing about innovative wastewater solutions, and our own sewerage engineers, if that's what they call, is that what they're called, sewerage engineers? They've always resisted they've sort of flushed those ideas down the loo. They want great big citywide things always.
So there's probably a commentary about some of the innovative solution, but also partnering with developers for these things as well, coming through as well. Councillor McPherson, anything else on your list?
And the other part of it was district plans that can't envisage activities like the adventure park or new things, and therefore say no because they're not in there, rather than...
That was, on camera, wasn't 100% accurate, his statement. Well, the district plan is zoned industrial out there, so it's a question whether it envisions it or not. It's got one zoning, it needs another, and that's what the plan change process is for.
But adventure playgrounds don't have their own zone.
Yeah, but it doesn't stop us from creating one in the plan change. The plan change is for. So everything's going the right way for achieving that, but we'll give you an update on it.
Okay.
Councillor Casson.
No, the main one was the state schools versus the Catholic and religious schools.
We've got that, so we'll bring that up in the DC briefing. State school versus the integrated school, we've got that one. Councillor Hamilton.
Okay, just clarity around, this is questions for clarity, is that right?
Questions, clarity. Finish the sentence. I would like information on.
Clarity around the DCs, the remission, i.e. the reversal, if someone's paid to go to a 3-bedroom but then chooses to go to the 2-bedroom, how that DC's locked in, non-transferable, etc.
Yeah, so clarity about remission credits when the level of demand is less than what was originally paid.
Our caps, as per something similar to what Joel brought up, I could work out my writing on that there. Also, our schedule of assets, and as Constance mentioned, how it goes over that 10-year period.
Yes.
Just like to discuss that or put that in our briefing.
Yeah, so in the briefing, discussion on caps, which is going to be there anyway, but also about our the process for going up beyond the 10 years, as well as what's on the capital program for 10 years, because I think we need to understand all of that for this conversation.
Yeah, and sorry, I can't hear that.
Oh, so covering the briefing caps. Sorry, I didn't see the Stafford. A conversation about our 10-year capital program beyond. Sorry, our capital program beyond the 10 years, and also how the capital program works beyond 10 years, how the calculation is done as well. Because a number of people in presenting made some wrong statements in terms of how it's managed, so we need to make sure we clarify that as well.
Same conversation around HCC staff costs for providing information, etc. It was very unclear as to what that cost could be.
Yeah, clarity around the admin charges and so forth. Stafford, thank you.
Can you come back to me? I'm just going to interpret my writing.
The process. Councillor Mallett.
I think this just clarifies what a couple of people have asked about. In the situation where we have caps and or full remissions on DCs, and it's still the money has to be found from somewhere. Where can it be found from? So can it does it get put back into the DC calculation? You get spread across.
We'll cover that in DC. Remissions and caps. We'll put tell you now, if we don't get money for it, we pay for it out of debt, and the debt gets paid back by rates. So ultimately.
Okay, so it's a three-handed way of the ratepayer gets it, so it doesn't go on to other developments.
We can't charge a development contribution for charges that aren't actually part of the allocation model.
Yep.
So we can't charge for one catchment over here for something over there.
So to be clear, any cap or any time a DC does not fully fund its costs, the balance gets picked up by ratepayers.
Ultimately,
Okay.
that's correct. So
Thank
we'll
you.
cover that in the briefing, but just to be absolutely clear on that.
Thank you.
Okay. Councillor Fuller, and then we'll go back to Councillor Ryan, then.
And then I have two more.
I will.
Thank you. There's quite a lot of questions around the DCs, but
We're
I'm
planning a 5-hour briefing.
I'm a bit concerned that I might start getting into deliberation as per before. So, a couple of things. There was a couple of reports that I'd like to get my hands on again because I haven't looked at them for a while. One was the Productivity Commission report on alternatives of raising money in the local government sector, especially around infrastructure and things. There were a few.
That's the Productivity Council's report on alternative funding.
It's about a year ago that it was produced, so I recall. And also, Chris Joblin talked about the Inside Economics report.
Insight.
Insight?
I think it's inside.
Thank you. Insight.
I was inside, is it?
We're inside. Yes, we are.
Well, whether it's insight or insight, they'll both be brilliant. Thank you. Excellent. Good. After 3 days of 12 hours and a bit more, could be forgiven for a small error like that. The other one is just any good examples of third-party investment at scale of infrastructure. But I don't know how to deal with that. Yeah. So I think it's worth. One more, I think I had. No, I think that's fine for now.
Councillor O'Leary.
I'm just checking, I think Dave raised this. A submitter mentioned that we had done a survey on the relativity for living wage. You put that on the list, I think, to see that?
What they mentioned was the support for the living wage from HCC staff.
Yeah, that was it. Yeah, so that's the.
Would you like a
Oh, it wasn't done. Okay.
So the figure of 70% was accurate as far as you know?
Carry on. We will follow it up officially, but I've never heard of that
Okay.
survey.
And the second one was a submitter questioned whether there was actually a TOMO underneath the municipal pool. That was yesterday. So can we have that information back again? Because we did it.
Noted, we're going to provide the.
Oh, you have? Okay.
Summary report which showed the interim assessment, which clearly showed the TOMO.
Yeah.
We'll provide that to you.
Great.
And we're also going to provide it to the group as well that requested it. So, Councillor Hamilton.
Thank you. It was touched on with Councillor Dave and recent speaker on the HIF loan benefits, and just clarity that Peacock's HIF loan, that benefit is just limited to that development, and or whether it gets distributed, or Chris Joblin brought it up, or whether it gets distributed to other developments, or whether we're legally bound to keep it into that cell.
Yes, we'll follow that up as part of the DC briefing.
Also, just with the Rotokauri DCs, how and Charles Marr's big development, if that's been factored in, and that might lessen DCs, or I don't know if that's been fully fleshed out.
We'll follow that out. I've got a question outstanding about DCs and SHAs, so we'll follow that through.
And also, I'd like to just stamp those discussions around off-the-grid infrastructure, closed cell water, targeted rates, infrastructure bonds, special purpose vehicles, urban development authorities. Please.
Yep, cool. Welcome to my world. That's all I talk about.
And causal nexus. Just some more definition around that.
Time travel.
Chicken and egg, didn't he just tell you that? We discussed that 5 minutes ago.
Thank you. Just the one I overlooked was I'm interested in the schedule that one of the Adair group talked about a backlog of projects, the 27%. You might recall him mentioning that 20%, 7% was a backlog of projects costs have already been incurred. And I asked him where he got that from. He said where he got it from. Could we have access to some of that information?
That backlog of projects of Dares, it's obviously Peacock's. Can you follow up on that one? And if not, ring them and ask. Yeah, okay, we'll follow up. I'll leave it with Blair.
I think he was saying that 27% of costs calculated in the DCs were for projects were already incurred, the project's already done, according to a schedule that he was looking at. But anyway, I don't want to go into deliberating that. I just want to have a look at that when we come into deliberations.
27 million on stage one. No.
Look, I don't want to get into discussion because I think that would be not appropriate.
So just as a reminder to councillors, the hearings were less than 10% of the submissions. So the obligation is on you to ensure that you read for a full round view all 2,000 plus submissions. And apologies, Mr Mayor, I've got you.
Or just, can we inflation-proof DC levels?
That's part of the question that's been raised by two of our submitters about indexing.
Sorry, Andrew, inflation?
Or do something to stop this big jumps that are happening every 10 years?
No, so that's the clarity that's needed through the briefing. So the big jumps are happening in 10 years because we're putting bigger capital program in. Rotocari's gone up to a $160 million swale.
Yeah, I get it, but it was still a direct question that was asked.
That comes from the briefing. So it's the indexing, the producers, the construction price index and all that sort of stuff in that conversation as well. Yep.
And could interest be included in that?
Yes, and the whole thing's going to come.
Okay.
So what we're going to do is the presentation was made that had that big PowerPoint deck where they laid out one page per issue. We're going to basically sit through those issues, plus whatever else we've heard from other submitters, and then basically talk about where we are, where they are, what the differences are and why, and then have a conversation with you about where we sit in terms of that and where we're coming from. So all that stuff, even though you mention it now, we're planning to be brought back, so we'll make sure we cover everything. Cool. Yeah, with that. So what I was saying before is that we're entering pretty much now into the deliberation phase, and as part of that, the expectation on you is you give consideration to all the information that's available to you, and that includes all of the written submissions as well. So for those that are 3/4 of the way through and not quite finished yet, I expect that you'll approve it last quarter.
But it's not possible to use that 10% as a representative sample?
No, it's not actually.
Every second one?
I have full confidence in you as city leaders. Anyway, I'm going to shut up now.
So we've got the resolution on the board, the motion on the board.
Why are we redacting our motions now? This is getting ridiculous. Where's transparency and democracy?
It's actually highlighted, councillor Mallet,
What
but
dirty
it's
word was up there before?
whatever's in your report.
So I'll move, seconded by,
Yep.
councillor Gary. Yeah, sure.
What part of the report is going to be redone?
So the submissions analysis attachment is going to be updated. So as a result of going out and asking people if they might have misunderstood or misread question 8, we've had some responses back in, and we want to make sure that the information you are provided with reflects those updated responses. And also we said that we would provide the quantitative analysis of the comments that have been received. So we'll include that as well.
And Sean, can you tell me why there was a 10th option that popped up online? Central City Park was presented twice after submissions had closed, after consultation had closed.
Yeah, I can explain that. So that's not a 10th option. It was it's the Central City Park River Plan option. So I think, as I explained in my email, that we hadn't updated the submission form to reflect the name of the project that council had agreed, which was Central City Park River Plan. When we updated that, we wanted to make sure that anyone who had completed the survey when it still said Central City Park, that their responses were recorded as such, so that we were completely transparent, so that when you get the results back, you will see the total for the people who have ticked don't want to do Central City Park or that project, but we'll also be clear about those that ticked it when it said Central City Park and those that ticked it when it said Central City Park River Plan. So there's no additional project. The totals of number of people who have ticked that project opposing it doesn't change, nothing.
But
changes in that
Central
respect.
City Park is still there twice, one with / river plan and one on its own. And I'm assuming after the email, you weren't overwhelmed with responses of people wanting to go in again and change it, because I think people in the public are a bit over it all. So why did you still leave it twice in there? That doesn't make any sense.
So that's the way that we've had to do it, so that we can show you so that we can show submitters, be transparent, that if you ticked it when it said Central City Park, that's what's showing. If you ticked it when it said Central City Park River Plan, that's what's showing. So it's showing either one or the other. It's not showing both, and that's what we need to do in order to provide that level of transparency.
But surely, unless every submitter goes in again and corrects their form, those that have said no to all 9 will not see the Central City Park being there twice, so they won't. How are we going to analyse that? Because that'll pop up again of those that you've sent the email to that have gone in and taken the time to respond again. Those that haven't done that will have an uncheck for Central City Park, and therefore that'll be analysed as support.
No, it won't be. So if you have ticked Central City Park or Central City Park River Plan whenever you made your submission, that is what is showing.
So why was it there twice though? I still don't understand why it was there twice.
I don't know if I can explain it much further.
No, he said he does. He can't. He said he can't explain it any better.
So basically, up to a certain point in time, was referred to as Central City Park.
/ river plan. / river plan.
No, to a certain point it was Central City Park, and a staff member or someone identified that it should have said Central City Park / river plan.
Which it shouldn't have, but.
Beside the point, ignoring the.
Well, that's a resolution of this council, so it should have actually.
Okay.
No, it wasn't a resolution. Well, I was answering him, so carry on.
And so a whole lot of people went in and attacked Central City Park. They didn't want to do it, right?
Yep.
If you recall, an email was sent out a while ago that when the numbers when we went in and put the tick in the box, and Councillor Siggy identified this, when we went in and changed the Central City Park / river plan, all those ticks that have been previously populated disappeared. And so we've now put them all back in. So part of the process of doing it, we've had to keep both pure from a statistical point of view, to ensure those people that previously ticked just the Central City Parks ticks against that, and those ticks against Central City Park / river plan are there separately as well. Oh, they didn't show. They're still there. Sorry,
They were in the system.
correct. They're in the system, but they didn't show when they were extracted. My apologies, Julie. Yes.
So it's even more confusing than I first thought.
No, it's less confusing. It's very clear. We've got some very robust data, and it's very easy to work out exactly now with information we've got what people take.
Well, I will look forward to that analysis report then.
It is absolutely clear. It's hard to explain, but when the analysis report comes out, it will reveal itself as very clear in front of you.
Councillor Paula.
Following on from this, because the problem with all of this is it doesn't instill the wider public with confidence about how their statistics are going to be treated. And I think we're in agreement about that. But in order to progress, not to keep beating the same drum.
Excuse me, Councillor Paula. We're in question time, not debate. You're going to get a chance to debate.
I'm just about to raise a question.
Yep.
Actually, you spend as much time interrupting me as I get to my question. I would like to ask whether, please, whether the recommendation can receive the report minus the submission analysis, minus the data for question 8, noting that that will be updated. I don't want to, I know it seems minor, but I'm interested in removing that subset of dodgy data and allowing that to come back before I receive it. It's just it's semantics, I know, but it indicates that I don't accept that subset of data.
Richard.
That was a question. Do you
I'm
agree?
asking you if it can be amended.
Firstly, I'll make it absolutely clear that there is no dodgy data, right? The advice we've had in terms of question 8 while some people were confused, the advice we had is the number of people that were confused or could have been confused wasn't significantly representative or could question over the validity of the data set. So from that point of view, there's nothing dodgy. What we've done is the system requires us to, when we correct things, is to delete the old one and replace it with a new one. So that's created some different data sets in terms of the way the data indexes have been given against the submission, but the data within those is still particularly valid. And the submissions report will reflect that. And that resolution updates it to achieve that.
So I appreciate that there is going to be a reworked analysis of the data, and that's good. That's what we wanted. But I still think I'd prefer not to receive that part of the report until I see it. Me personally. But I might be lone on that one.
Yep.
Pardon?
That's a question to move in motion.
It is. That's right. That's right.
But that's what they're saying. The submission
It is a new analysis that will capture question 8.
will be updated prior
Yeah,
to.
it's the whole, it's the whole back end that informs the front end of the report.
Yes, so everything we've talked about, including knowing yes, has been now addressed, and get a far more distilled report that's reflecting the concerns that have been raised previously. And in no way will it be confusing.
Which is good. I just think we should receive the report minus what the subset of data at the moment until we get the new subset of data.
So it's back down now, Mr Mayor, to move her in the second bit, because they want to make those changes.
Well, either way, they mean the same either way. So
Well,
while,
one is not adopting the report.
if you want to make your changes, as long as it means the same thing and as long as staff are happy. I play with it as much as you like. Just go ahead. Paula, can you feed the words through
We
to?
just have a response from.
I mean, to me it reads, I'm comfortable, it says what it does, but if you want to change it to satisfy yourself that it's clearer, go ahead.
It's entirely up to elected members, of course. On the one hand, a motion to receive the report noting a change to the attachment effectively accepts the attachment that's there, but qualifies it by saying that it is going to be updated and amended in the way that's been described. The alternative is, if members are looking for further clarity, is to receive the report without the attachment and note that the attachment is going to be updated.
Thank you. That's exactly on point. Thank you. Did you want to make anything else?
It seems to be senseless not to do it now. We're only receiving stuff. We're not approving or agreeing with anything.
I guess I'm in slightly uncharted territory here, to be honest, Councillor McPherson, because typically we would receive something in a council meeting to acknowledge the context for the hearing, and the first part of the report actually does do that. It sets out the fact that there were submissions and that they're being heard today. So there probably is some value in receiving that, but I take your point entirely. There still remains the second aspect to it, which is that at some point in time the attachment will need to be received.
Well, that'll be after we've got it at our next meeting, or can be.
No,
But in the meantime, we should receive everything we've had, including the verbal reports of the CEO and the governance manager, if you want. I mean, I think we're tying ourselves in not totally unnecessary knots because we're not approving anything. So let's just vote for it.
But I'd like to thank Leanne for that bit of advice, because that's exactly on point. Now, I don't need to chuck out all of attachment 1, but I feel uncomfortable with receiving and therefore implying that it was okay to receive an attachment that had that data in it until the data is updated. So whether you take out the entire of attachment 1 until it's updated or just the data pertaining to question 8, I'll be comfortable with either of those.
I'm comfortable with.
Yeah, no,
Yeah, because I support you and hear what you're saying, Councillor Southgate. And I think this motion goes that step further.
yes.
And captures everything.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, that's what it does. It does.
Yeah. So are we going to amend it to remove that?
Mover and seconder.
There's a I think, Mayor
Like
Andrew, you
I've
indicated
said,
you were flexible, didn't you?
To me, it's very clear. If you want to change it, have you got your wording ready?
As Leanne explained, it would be perfect for me.
Just whatever keeps the majority of us happy without having to go through an amendment.
Well, with respect, Mr Mayor, I mean, you should invite amendments, and that's our
Anyone's allowed
right,
to
and
put
we're
up an
trying
amendment.
to, yeah, and Councillor Southgate's not playing with anything here. Perhaps we could just take a couple of minutes and we could get the wording correct with the governance manager. That's what is normal practice and helpful for members. Can we do that?
I made it very clear that you can change it to suit yourselves so that you're happy with what it says without going through the amendment process. But if
Yes,
you
we
prefer,
know that.
At any stage, I don't have to invite you to put amendments up. You can step up and put amendment up if that's what you'd prefer to do.
My
The ball's
understanding
in
is...
your court.
Yeah,
My
we know
understanding
that.
is that...
I've left it wide open that you can go either way, whatever
We know
suits
that,
you.
Mayor. I'm just asking if we can break for a couple of moments
I think they're
so
drafting.
some elected members can talk to the governance manager. Is what we normally do. That is normal practice. So no, we're not allowed to do that, Councillor Southgate. We'll have to wait.
Are you drafting? Are you helping us with drafting? Thank you. Thank you. Appreciate that. It's not that bad, Andrew, honestly.
Agreed to alter the amendment, so... Agreed to alter it, so it doesn't have to be removed, does it? All right. No, you're not moving. I agreed to let you change it. It's still my motion and it's still being seconded by the same person who had it up before. So can we go into debate, please?
Southgate's moving the amendment and I'm seconding the amendment.
No, this... It's... Okay,
That
so
wasn't clear.
we'll go into debate. So it's moved by myself, it's seconded by, was it Councillor Ryan? Councillor Gary?
But I'm just not quite sure which one is the recommendation.
We take one off the screen that's not the motion, please. We have multiple.
Just to be very clear, I agreed to let you change the wording to satisfy everybody around the table. So it's just, we're going ahead now with debate. It's Councillor Angela.
I'm not the mover of the motion, so I don't get to speak first. I don't know who the mover of the motion is.
Okay, let's go straight to the board to vote. There was only one speaker. I invited you to speak. Can we go to the vote, please? Can we bring the board up? Okay, we'll now close the meeting and we'll move through to... Sorry.
There's another item on the report, isn't that right?
The DC report.
Oh, sorry, yes.
Sorry, that's good.
So it is the staff recommendation which is in your book, which is now under DCs. Does anybody want to speak to it? Okay, we'll go to the board to vote. It's in your book. It's on your. This is what we've been talking about for the last 3 days.
What page is it?
Page 24. Okay, we have no discussion, so we'll go to the board to vote. We've moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Dave.
Sorry, are we voting now?
Okay, so we'll now close the meeting. Thank you very much for your patience. It's been a long 3 days, 4 days. So, well, 3 days it's been, but thank you all. 4 days. So thank you all for your patience and thank you for your kindness to the chair. Thank you, Democracy.
Welcome.